gives me the greatest pleasure to bring in Ronnie Baskin, the founding director and owner of Kilimanjaro, and now the CEO of Kilimanjaro Consulting Australasia-wide, now Enterprise Solutions New Zealand and Kilimanjaro Consulting Australia. We're all as one now, or they're all as one now. So welcome, Ronnie, and you're going to take us away and get us kicked off in a positive fashion and tell us a little bit of inspiration for our September edition. Over to you.
Thanks, Grant. Thank you for that introduction. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about the time zones. It is quite weird to be doing the user groups in this week when New Zealand has ticked over to daylight saving and Australia hasn't. And I was also thinking about the unfortunate circumstances that we had about 2.5 years ago in the middle of the face-to-face user groups. We were forced to go online because of the declaration of a COVID pandemic. And this time our dates shifted because of the death of the Queen. But here we are. We have done a live user group, 2 live user groups in Auckland, 2 live user groups in Sydney, and back online now. And it's interesting to see how people's behavior has changed through the pandemic. I've got to say that at the live events, I never thought I would say this, but it seemed to me that people actually love their software, if that's possible. But such enthusiasm for the user groups and for software, but also a great pleasure to be doing it online. So thank you for that. I am going to share my screen. If you just give me a moment, there we go. And I'm going to run through a few slides. How's that? Is that visible? I hope. There we go.
That is visible. That is fine, Ronnie. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so as Grant said, we sponsor the user groups. We've done it for many years, and it's a great pleasure for us to be doing that. And we try and present a little bit of call it thought leadership or a little bit of mental stimulation at the beginning. We take some time to come up with a theme that ties everything together. And I think the theme this year has worked extremely well. And we're talking about innovation and change and the link between innovation and change. And I wanted to go through a little bit of a story with you of Kilimanjaro's own experience with innovation and change. So starting off with some sort of a definition of innovation. And my favorite strategist, Peter Drucker, had said, innovation is the specific instrument of entrepreneurship, the act that endows resources with a new capacity to create wealth. And if you reflect on that for a moment, this is exactly what you're doing in your businesses. You're looking at how you can change things, how you can improve efficiency, how you can come up with new ideas to create wealth. So so innovation is really essentially part of any entrepreneurial business. The question then arises is, how do you build a culture in your organization that promotes innovation? Because it's not only about who is doing it, but it's also about how is it being done. And an innovation culture encompasses all-encompassing. You've got to have an attitude, you've got to have a mindset, you've got to have a set of values and beliefs that encourages innovation, and you've got to have norms and behaviors that support innovation in your company. Quite a few years ago now, Kilimanjaro was invited to participate in an international benchmarking study on management best practice. And one of the elements that was measured was innovation. And I was quite confused by this. I couldn't understand how can you measure whether you have this innovation culture in an organization. And the framework that was used for that looked something like this. They looked at drivers, they looked at design, and they looked at outcomes. And I found that framework quite confusing, and it didn't really help me in terms of understanding whether I had built an innovation culture in the Kilimanjaro business. But when I looked at the questions that were being asked in all of these, as an example, when looking at drivers, these were the sorts of questions that were being asked. So are we empowering employees to systematically learn and apply their knowledge to problem solving? Is innovation a significant part of the organization's business strategy? And the third one there, which is, sorry, not the third one, actually, I'm just looking at that. I think I might have skipped a slide there. There we go. That was the first three. Do you lead by example? Do you encourage employees to think and act creatively? Is there teamwork and collaboration? Because teamwork and collaboration is actually where the magic happens. And then back to that slide, the bottom one over there, is your innovation driven by your customers? Because at the end of the day, the customer is king. And if you're looking to innovate and to create wealth, it has to be built around your customers' requirements. Further to that, do you have an approach to allocating funding? And in the case of an organization such as mine, the allocation of funding is actually the allocation of time more than anything else. But having said that about innovation in the company, that still didn't really help me to say, how do we improve? How do we build on our innovation culture? And how do you really get this intersection between innovation and change really operating well? And I stumbled across an open innovation framework by quite a well-known management consultancy company, international company called Gartner, who most of you would have heard of. And they spoke about open innovation and the approaches to open innovation. So if you look above the line there, they talk about directed innovation, and below the line, they talk about suggestive innovation. On the left, they talk about invitational, and on the right, they talk about participative. And if I go through those blocks one at a time, it looks something like this. Directed participative is you direct a group of individuals to address a specific innovation or problem. In other words, it's not open-ended, and you're defining the group and you're saying you need to address this specific problem. The next one is that where there is no specific problem to solve, but you need to generate ideas. And I'll give you an example of that. I'll give you a very well-known example of that in the case of a company called 3M, and we'll get into that in a moment. The next one is suggestive, which is not open to everyone, but the topic is focused on a specific issue. And then the top one on the left-hand side is you pre-screen and you select the participants with expertise related to the issue at hand. And we will talk about that one as well in the light of how you go about engaging in a change management / implementation of whether it's an entirely new piece of software or a project in your company. So the example that I'm going to give you is the suggestive participative, which is no specific problem to solve, but needs to generate ideas. There's a very, very interesting book called The Evolution of Useful Things by a guy called Henry Petrosky. And it's really worth a read if you're interested. He talks about how simple things evolved, simple, useful things evolved. And these are very good examples of the bottom right-hand quadrant over there, where people just discover stuff when they're not particularly trying to solve a problem. But one of the examples that he covers in his book is a company called 3M. And 3M started off as a abrasives company. This is sandpaper, grits, cutting discs, and so on and so on. But they actually had a policy in the company. They had this innovative culture, and they allowed their employees to do what they called bootlegging. So in addition to your normal day job, you were allowed to spend time just messing around and coming up with whatever you came up with. And in 1968, one of their scientists who was trying to develop a superglue actually came up with a low-tack, reusable, pressure-sensitive adhesive. So this was a solution to a problem that didn't exist. And this product went absolutely nowhere until somebody else in that same department, a colleague, who was quite a religious man and would go to church on Sundays and would use little bits of paper in his hymn book to mark the place. And whenever he opened his hymn book, the piece of paper would drop out and so on and so on. And he realized that by putting some of this low-tack adhesive on these bits of paper, this actually solved his problem. And that was the beginning of the Post-it note. And that's probably the best known example of just open slather, as I said, called bootlegging, just do what you need to do and come up with ideas. We don't have the luxury of that in our organizations, or not many organizations have the luxury of that. But if you look now at what a business implementation methodology looks like, or an implementation methodology looks like, the key is in the constitution of the group of people that are involved in that initial design phase. And if you constitute that group correctly, you will get the innovation, and you'll get the spark, and you'll get a spread of ideas. Because what you want to avoid is putting people in that room that are resistant to change, are resistant, and not only resistant to new ideas, but not capable of bringing up new ideas because they are the wrong people. So what you do is you use this approach where it's not open to everyone. The topic is focused because it's focused on the specific issue of how do I solve this problem, or how do I put in my new system, or how do I bring about this change. So the topic is focused, but you want to include people in there that are actually not people that are involved on a day-to-day basis with this, that you have some diversity in that team. And I think that was the lesson for me, is that you need diversity. When I say diversity, it's a diversity of ideas, creative people as well as technical people. And this is why a methodology where you're involving a technical expert from outside the company that knows what the software is capable of, plus people inside your company that are asking the right questions and coming up with the right ideas. This is why that approach works so well. So essentially, when you are designing your system, you can embed innovation in that. Just a summary then is management needs to encourage people to be innovative. You can't have the approach of saying, just leave things as they are, quite happy, we've been doing this for 20 years, why would we change? That's not an innovative approach, and nor is it encouraging. Make sure that you budget. Budgeting means budget time and money for innovation. The quickest way to constrain innovation is to constrain the budget. Choose the appropriate model. So for example, directed or suggestive, invitational or participative, and involve people that know what you don't know. So don't look for the yes men, look for the no men as well in that. And Grant, that's it from me. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the user groups. I hope you have a very successful user group, and I hope that the participants learn a lot about not only their software, but about innovation and change.